Hello everyone, Curious Corduroy here, and today we're going to be checking out a brand new interview with some of the creators of the Final Fantasy franchise from over the years as they primarily focus on the new Dissidia Duellum. I'm not really too crazy about that, I don't have too much interest in that game so far, but people like Yoshi P are here, Yoshinori Kitase, and Tetsuya Nomura, so I figured there could be some interesting tidbits in regards to Final Fantasy that we could focus on. So that's primarily what we're going to be taking a look at in today's video. If any of that sounds cool to you, you can click the like button. If you'd like to stick around for more stuff like this, you can subscribe. And if you just like Final Fantasy, you can hype up the video. I really appreciate it. Alright, so just in the interest of time, I fast forwarded through the interview just a little bit to get to Yoshi P. His first question, his impressions of when he was first introduced to the world of Dissidia Duellum. So let's see what his first thoughts were. This definitely feels like something Nomura would come up with. Yeah, Nomura is interesting. Sometimes you get ideas from Nomura that are like peanut butter and jelly. They just go together really well. It makes sense. Other times you get peanut butter and mayonnaise. Weird combination. Some people might like it. It's not going to be for everybody. It's a storied franchise. Yeah, very different. Yeah, that's the cool thing about Final Fantasy, which is, I guess, maybe a detriment for some people, is that every Final Fantasy is so different. New cast of characters, new world, new gameplay aspects. Some people get really attached to a specific Final Fantasy, and that becomes what Final Fantasy is for them. A lot of the people who grew up with the older Final Fantasies, they love the medieval style, which is, I think, one of the reasons why a lot of people love 9, because we had 7 and 8, which were very different, and then 9 kind of brought it back to basics, I guess. It was like a love letter to earlier Final Fantasies. So everyone has their favorite. There are people that love 6, hate 7, people that love 10, hate 8. It's Final Fantasy. No one hates Final Fantasy more than Final Fantasy fans. But speaking on this, it's kind of harder to do it with Dissidia because now you have to create a cohesive, unified world where these characters can then actually exist and speak to one another and interact. And how do you incorporate the combat? There's a lot. Yeah, it's harder for the younger generation, I think, to latch on to Final Fantasy. And I think part of that is because of the dev times being very long in between games. The modern outfits, yeah. Yeah, it's a cool concept. I'm not crazy about everyone's modern outfits. Kane is very much like Milady with his fedora. Cloud, I'm not a big fan of his look either. I think he's supposed to be a painter in this world. Lightning, though, she looks cool. She looks like a boss business lady who doesn't take any crap from anyone. But the whole idea of this Dissidia is that the characters are transported into modern time, and they have cell phones now, smartphones, and these outfits we see them in are like their everyday outfits, which are like disguises. But when stuff goes down and the monsters show up, they go back into, you know, the Final Fantasy outfits that we know them from. They then disappear like ghosts in the night. It's kind of interesting. Clive. I do love me some Clive. Tricky character to handle. Yeah. Yeah, you got young Clive. You got Clive in his 20s around the time he meets Sid and becomes free. And then you got older Clive, who I think makes it to his early 30s, late 20s, which is who you spend most of the last part of the game with. Oh, yeah. Clive is a very heavy character. I'm curious to see what point in time they pulled Clive.
悩みつつでもあり、でも前も向きつつであるっていう一番いいタイミングを切り取っていただいたなと思ってます。で実際まあさっきちょっとお話したガイアもそうなんですけど、14のガイアと16のクライブどっちも、まあ、我々ずっとこう特に14はいろんな FF シリーズとこうクロスオーバーさせてもらっていったものがいよいよ他のタイトルに恩返しでもあるので、まあ、うちは結構
More than happy to share character resources.
キャラクターリソースをバンバン他にこうお出しして、こんな技ありますよ、こんなモーションありますよ、もうどんどん使ってください使ってくださいっていう風にで、かなり開発チームの皆さんとも密にやらせてもらって、技の解釈だったりとか、じゃあディシディア風にアレンジするにはこうしたらいいんじゃないですかみたいなアイデアとかっていうのも相当密にやり取りさせてもらったので、まあ、僕も監修では参加。
Yeah, they did the same thing with Clive and Tekken 8. They worked very closely with Square Enix. Bandai Namco did, the Tekken team, to make sure that Clive was translated properly, not just for Tekken, but that he still retained his Final Fantasy 16 persona and how he moved, all the animations, down to like the names of the special moves for Clive. All of his moves have names. They had to be okayed by Square Enix, but it was a very, very like close process to ensure that Clive was still Clive.
させてもらってますけど、かなり両チームのいい連携で出来上がってると思ってるので、ぜひプレイヤーの皆さん楽しみにしてもらえればと思ってます。まあ、さっきちょっと触れたように、シリーズの歴史が非常に長いので、まあ、僕今年で53歳で、僕はリアルタイムに FF1 から遊んでますけど、まあ、特に今のその若い世代のアクションベースだったりとか、
it can be harder for the younger generation to get into it, I guess.
人たちっていうのはなかなか、まあ、最近のね FF シリーズちょっとこう新作のリリース間隔がすいません長くなって。
Oh, Yoshi P spitting some fire here. Part of that is simply because, I'm sorry to say, the release intervals for new titles have gotten longer. So some players haven't really had a chance to connect with the series the way older fans did. Yeah, older Final Fantasies were coming out like hotcakes, man. They were pumping those games out, super high quality. I think like 7 came out in 97, 8 came out in 99, 9 I think came out in 2000. And then I think 2001 was Final Fantasy X. So they were getting those games out quick, they were high quality, and they were all great despite being kind of different from one another. Nowadays, you know, it takes a long time for Square Enix to get these Final Fantasy games out. Final Fantasy 13 came out in 2009, and then the next mainline Final Fantasy wouldn't be until 2016 with Final Fantasy 15. So that's like 7-year dev time. And on top of that, 15 probably would have come out sooner, but it had a very troubled development cycle, which is unfortunate. I think nowadays Square Enix is kind of moving in a direction where they're able to kind of decrease the dev time for these games. I look at the 7 Remake trilogy in particular, which is now being led by Naoki Hamaguchi. Barring the 4 years from Final Fantasy VII Remake being announced to it actually like coming to fruition in 2019, the games have come out relatively fast. 7 Remake came out in 2020, Rebirth came out in 2024, and part 3 is probably going to be early 2027. So it's been like 3 to 4 years in between each of these games, which is much quicker of a dev cycle than what we're used to. And even looking at Remake to Rebirth, there was the DLC in between, which bridged that gap. So it was like a 3-year cycle that you were waiting for new games. I think one of the reasons why it takes so long for these mainline Final Fantasies to come out now is primarily because each Final Fantasy is different. And when it comes to combat, well, I can appreciate that every Final Fantasy is different. It's something new and exciting to look forward to. As a fan, I can also be critical and say, because every Final Fantasy is different with its combat, that makes development time probably a lot harder. Because now you're coming up with, okay, what do we do for the combat of this game? On top of figuring out story, characters, your world, how you're going to explore it, how the player's going to interact with it. So if you can find a way to standardize the combat, that's a huge chunk of your dev time that is now already figured out, right? Gameplay is like, I don't know, half of your game, depending on the type of game you're making. And that's why I personally would really love to see the hybrid combat system we have in the 7 Remake trilogy become the standardized combat system for Final Fantasy moving forward. It pays respect and homage to the older Final Fantasies, still including turn-based aspects with the command-based menu system, the ATB system, but also embraces what it seems like Square Enix has always wanted Final Fantasy to kind of move into, and that's action with the real-time stuff, real-time parrying, doing all of the synergy stuff. It's super well done. It's a very satisfying combat system that feels really good to play, and it creates a really cool new identity for the Final Fantasy franchise that I would love to see used moving forward. And if you take that hybrid combat system and that becomes your standardized combat moving forward, now you don't got to worry about combat. You focus on your story, focus on your characters and the world and how it gets built out, and then you can take the foundation of that hybrid system, add new flourishes here and there, different kinds of tweaks depending on who's making the game, and boom, now you don't gotta worry about it. So I think doing that could really shorten the dev time for these Final Fantasy games and start to get them out quicker so people can, connect with them easier. They're gonna be in the public eye for a lot longer. I look at what Capcom is doing with the Resident Evil remakes, and it's kind of a similar situation. Their combat and the controls, the gameplay, relatively similar from game to game, but they make little improvements here and there. RE4 remake, allowing Leon to parry, do more of the melee stuff. Requiem just refines that further. So Capcom's been able to get those games out every 2 to 3 years. It's insane, and they're all good. RE3 remake has some issues. It's not a bad game, but some questionable decisions were definitely made when that game came out. So long story short, I think if they move forward with that hybrid combat system, it makes development time hopefully, a lot shorter. So you can get these games out quicker. And then you got people like Naoki Hamaguchi, Yoshi P, who mostly seem kind of in tune with like what the audience really wants and the younger generation. Hamaguchi in particular, very good project manager, knows how to get the best out of his team and get these games done at a relatively quick pace. Hello everyone, Future Corduroy here, and as I was editing the video, I was thinking a little bit more about this topic, and I do want to make a clarification that I don't think that having a combat system that transfers from game to game is a cure-all necessarily, because game development is incredibly complex. There's a lot of different factors that go into it, like what team is making the game, what's their creative vision, what's the overall budget, what's the health of the company like. Are there any unforeseen circumstances that will kind of pop up that you got to deal with? So it's a very complex development cycle for a lot of these games. I just think that having a standardized combat system really does go a long way and helps out with that dev time. It's not a fix-all by any means, but having at least one part of your game development cycle figured out, I think does probably help out a ton. But I just wanted to make a clarification there in case anyone was kind of confused or thought that I was assuming that that would fix everything.
来なかった方もいると思うんですけど、コアな FF ファン、そしてファイナルファンタジーのキャラクターファンの皆さんと全く新しいゲームとして触れてもらえる
I don't know about that
世代のファンの皆さんが一つのまたコミュニティになって FF 全体をまた盛り上げてもらったり知るきっかけになってもらえるんじゃないかなと思っているので、僕としてはそこを一番期待してます。なのでこう皆さんの今回ちょっと SNS っぽさをテーマにした実はゲームシステムも入ってたりするので、その辺を活用しながらそういった年齢性別問わずコミュニティがよりこう大きく膨らんでいくっていうところに期待をしているので、ぜひそのあたりをちょっとこう外からお持ちしてようかなと思ってます。
This game, I think, will do well in Japan. That seems to be where their audience for these types of games are. Here in America, most people don't really play these types of games. Most people were in America were not happy when this was shown off. My video was like, I'm whelmed. I'm not against it, but I'm not like super intrigued by it either. I really love all 3 Dissidia games we've gotten. Yes, even NT. I'm like one of 5 people that actually really enjoyed that game because I really liked the team-based aspect of it, which I know a lot of people didn't like. It was very esportsy. But if I was good with a character and I went online and I found 2 other people who they knew what they were doing, they weren't snobby about it, but they were supportive team players, and we're all just firing on the same cylinders and working together, and then you win, it's very satisfying because it's still at the core, it's still the Dissidia combat system, which I love. So I wouldn't mind seeing that again, but I think most people just really want Duodecim to come back, whether it's a remaster or a remake. of Duodecim, give it online play, polish that up. That's what most people here in America really want. But I think this will probably do fine in Japan. That seems to be where these types of mobile games for Square do really well. I personally would like to see Square move a little away from the mobile aspect and focus a little bit more on the console side of things, but who knows? Kitase!
ですね、まずその PSP で結構ね若い子、それこそ中学生とか高校生の方たちがこうアドホックでね対戦するみたいなこう遊び方っていうのは非常にトレンドになった時期であったので、まあ
It's kind of funny he says that. That was a Japanese thing. Here in America, surprisingly, when I went to school in high school, there were a number of kids who had PSPs, but they used them as MP3 players because it was so easy to put music and video onto those things that you just plug in your headphones, you carry the little rectangle, and boom, you got something that is like maybe around the price of an iPhone or iPod at the time, maybe a little cheaper. So that's primarily what I saw people using them for. I did play a lot of Dissidia with my friend Lorenzo. We're big Final Fantasy fans, and I remember he brought his PSP over to my house one day, and we just ad hoc'd Dissidia for hours. It was a lot of fun.
ワイのファンタジーでもそのみんなでワイワイこう集まって遊べるような対戦して遊べるような
Gather around,
企画っていうのをやりた
enjoy
いなと
together in that
盛
same
り上がった
lively
のと
way.
まああとは
Okay,
そのファイナルファンタジーとしてもこう
so this is the creation of the first
20周
Dissidia.
年みたいなのを迎える時期でもあったので、まあそれをきっかけにまあ、当時の若手スタッフ
Yeah.
が集まってかつその
Nomura leads that charge, baby.
そこ温度を取りながら立ち上がったような記憶があります。その辺
Very cool idea.
どうでしょうかね、当時の思いとか、まあ、当時のまあ経緯とかっていう部分は。
キングダムハーツ作ってた時の若手のスタッフたち
I hear Nomura. I don't see Nomura. He's been doing this in like live streams for Ever Crisis and different interviews where he just doesn't show up on camera. He's there. He's probably sitting next to the camera, but he just doesn't show up. There's just an empty chair sitting there. It's very much like I'm just here so I don't get fined energy. It's like Marshawn Lynch, I think, said that. That is hilarious to me. Nomura is there, but he's just so like iconic and doing his own thing that he doesn't have to be on camera. So poor Kitase is just sitting here by himself. Oh man, that's great.
僕たちにやらせてくださいっていう、僕は先導というか、まあ、彼らが
Okay, so the younger devs brought this idea to him.
僕たちでやりたいけど企画がないので、野村さんなんかやりたい企画他にないんです
Their project you'd like to see happen?
でこのディシティアの企
Yeah,
画を
Dissidia was born from Nomura. It's his baby.
そんな始まりでした。
まあ確かに若手が多分生きのいい人間が何人かいたんだよね。いや思い出しました。ちなみに、まあ、今回のディシディアっていうのはその、まあ、以前のディシディアと違って、まあ、舞台が現代になってるじゃない。
Yeah.
そこはまた、まあ、僕が最初に聞いた時には驚いたんだけど、その辺はこうどんな経緯とかどんな思いがあって。
毎回ねディシディアってそのやらせてくださいって言いに来るんですよね。
Okay, so a lot of people at Square Enix, the younger devs, wanted to keep Dissidia alive. Huh.
やろうというよりはやりたいんですって言いに来て
We really want to make
今回
this.
最初は違う
They wanted to pursue a
企画
completely
でやりたい
different
って
project.
ただいやそれやる
If we were going to do something like that, wouldn't Dissidia? Oh, okay. This is where a lot of people actually get kind of.
僕はかなり前ですけど東京オリンピック
Okay, Tokyo Olympics, what the heck? Okay, so here's where I think a lot of the disconnect is between Square Enix and the fan base for Dissidia. Because I saw this criticism a lot of it feels like they just took a game idea and slapped Dissidia onto it. It kind of seems like that's what they might have done. Where the devs had seemingly what could have been a cool idea that could have been its own thing, but they decided, Nomura maybe made that decision based on what he's saying here. Why don't we just slap Dissidia on it? It gives it a better chance at finding an audience, I get that, but yeah, because you see Duellum and it's like this, other than like the theme of like bringing the characters together, it doesn't quite feel like Dissidia based on like what we know it to be, which is interesting. But they had a completely different project. Wow. But it's cool to know that like, the younger devs were like, yeah, we want to do a Dissidia. Personally, I would really love to see a Dissidia that is like a proper fighter. like a 2D fighter, 3D fighter, in the vein of like Street Fighter, Tekken, Soul Calibur, Guilty Gear. I would love a Final Fantasy fighting game like that, whether it's a 1v1, a 2v2 tag fighter. I think that could be sick. I don't think they'll ever do that, and I don't know what they'll do with Dissidia moving forward should this, find some success. But I think a lot of fans just really wanted to go back to what it was on PSP. Personally, again, I would love a fighting game. I also wouldn't mind if we got another team-based fighter, which I know a lot of people will hate me for that. I liked NT, man. I thought it was fun.
開催前ぐらいにディシディアをまたやるみたいな話ちょっとあったんで、
Rain Dissidia back during the
ちょっとそういう企画
Olympics.
を書いてたんですよね。世界各国から。
People from all around the world. Oh, so it was like Olympics expired, inspired, not expired. That's funny.
立ててたので、まあそれをまた預けたと。
He wanted it to tie into the
大変なこと
Olympics.
になるみたいな話にしようと。
Again, this is, oh my God, what just happened? This is where you get the whole peanut butter and jelly or peanut butter and mayonnaise from Nomura.
たのがもうだいぶ経っちゃったんで、オリンピック
He's
は
got a
なくな
very
ったん
creative
ですけど
mind.
企画からまあ現代っていうのは残ったというと。
Plans fell through.
で今作も
Olympics were done.
まあきっかけとしてはやりたいっていう人
Project All-Star, someone on the team really wanted to make it.
話もあったんだけど、そこはまあ誰がどういう形で
I think this is Matsumoto-san
流れになったのか。
because he was in the
それ
thumbnail.
は今回
Our current
の
producer, yeah,
プロデュ
Matsumoto-san.
ーサー実は僕とは以前の仕事はしてて他のタイトルで、で今回またやるということでプロデューサーの松本もじゃあ
Oh, that's who the chair's for.
話しましょうか。
はい。
はい。
Nomura's like, you guys just do your
お
thing.
願いします。
はい。よろしく。
Oh, this guy's nervous. Poor guy.
はじめまして、ディシディアデュエルムファ
Producer,
イナルファンタジープロデューサーの松本です。少し緊張してますが、本日
Yeah,
はどう
he's
ぞよ
nervous.
ろしくお願いします。
Poor guy.
まあ先ほどもちょっとね
That's gotta suck too. Like you're so excited about this idea and you put it together and then it gets revealed and everyone's just like, this sucks. This isn't what I wanted. I get it. Like on the one hand, I completely respect and understand when developers have a vision for something that they want to bring to fruition. That's cool. I respect that they have these visions and they're like, I think this would be cool. And they're not held back and told by people at the company like, no, make what we want you to make. Other than Nomura maybe saying, maybe make it Dissidia. But obviously when that happens, that idea, that vision isn't going to always gel with the audience. So it can create that disconnect there of you guys are out of touch. You don't know what we really want. So creating a new game like this, it's not going to be for everybody. And not everyone's going to like it. There'll be people who love this game. People here in America who will probably love this game. Maybe be whales for it for all I know. But that's kind of the chance you take when making a new game, especially with a beloved IP like Dissidia. Some people will like it. A lot of people will be very upset it's not what they wanted it to be. So it's very dicey there. I see both sides of it though.
世界観的な部分で、まあ今回ね従来の DC と違って今回現代舞台っていうっていうところで非常にサプライズであるんだけど、まあそうしたきっかけっていうのはさっきのバン君には聞いたんだけど、
そうですね。まあ元々はその対戦
Originally, I've been working on a concept for a
ゲ
competitive
ームというと
battle-focused
ころの
game.
企画を自分の方で進めてまして、で、まあ野村さんとは前の
Collaborate with Nomura,
一緒に
previous
何かしらこう
project.
スクエアエニックスの
I repeatedly approached him with the idea of creating something that combined a Square Enix title with a versus style game. Interesting they say versus style. My mind goes to fighting game. So I'm wondering if maybe he just... I'm curious to see how much of Matsumoto's original vision is still intact with this game. That's interesting wording there.
IP のタイトルをと対戦ゲームというところをまあ掛け合わせて、まあプロジェクトとして立ち上げたいなというところを、まあ、結構何回もお伺いして確か、はい、ご相談させていただい
As you
て
do.
まあ結果としてそのディシディアファイナル
Okay.
の、まあ、IP を、まあ掛け合わせてみたらどうかと言っていただいたので、そこからはいその形で今までプロジェクトを立ち上げて、まあ、開発を進めさせていただいております。はい、
現代舞台にしたってことで、
I get it. After seeing stuff like Foam Stars, if this wasn't attached to Final Fantasy, it wouldn't. I don't think it would have been made, or it would have come out and people would have been like, "What? What's this?"
キャラクターもそのね現代の
It being attached to Dissidia
地
gives
球
it
とか日本
a chance.
みたいな感じの世界にこう
Yeah.
従来の FF のキャラが 作るにあたって
So this stuff we've already covered earlier in the video.
このキャラクターが
Yamashita was the
現在
character
どういう
designer.
衣装なのかっていうところから作ってい
Yeah.
ただいて
I'm not crazy about all the new looks, you know?
まあただキャラデザ今回僕はしてない。
Yeah, Nomura didn't do it except for one.
その一体かはどう
Which one? That's a secret for now.
いずれわかると思う
I'm。sure people. It's got to be Sephiroth, right? Sephiroth's in this game very briefly at the beginning, which, funny enough, you could tie it back to 7 Remakes trilogy and how meta it gets. Sephiroth just straight up follows Cloud into the world of Duellum and like teases him at the beginning, talks about how he's going to go on an adventure, something like that, and how he'll see him again. I assume Sephiroth is that one character that nobody is allowed to touch at Square Enix except for Nomura. Although, interestingly enough, Nomura did an interview recently with the Magic the Gathering folks, and he was talking about his experience creating art for that game and how a lot of the cards use some of his older artwork, which looks incredible. But to him, someone who's such an experienced illustrator, he looks back at that stuff from like 30 years ago and he's like, man, it looks like a toddler drew this, which is like, dude, that's a very talented toddler. But it was super cool to see him look at how other artists were handling characters he created and well, not created, but designed, and how he was like, this looks cool. This person did Locke. That looks really sick. So it was nice to see him pay respects to other artists, to see his artwork side by side with their interpretations. But I like the one character that I assume in terms of this game that was off limits was probably Sephiroth. Although other people at Magic the Gathering, Wizards of the Coast, did get to draw Sephiroth, and Nomura was seemingly very happy with those because he had to go through and approve all of that artwork. So if he didn't like something, it probably wasn't going to go through, but I think based on what he said in the interview, most of the artwork he was really impressed with from the other artists, which I think is pretty cool. And he gets approached by people all the time saying, can you make me a character like Sephiroth? Because Sephiroth is just so iconic. So that's pretty cool.
僕は今回は全部その山下に任せて、貢献人っていうか、
He's a supervising
まず
guardian.
逐一こうそれを見て、まあ一応ベースは今までのディシディアの僕の絵をベースに描いてるので。
Yeah, because the art style for this game is cool when they're in their normal
他にもね、
outfits.
衣装、コスチュームは結構
Or armor,
若手
battle
の
armor,
デザ
whatever
イ
you
ナ
want to call
ー
it.
が多く参加してます。
Somebody fell in the background.
それはかなり僕は今鍛えてるところ。
Nomura is training a lot of the younger
こ
generation.
ういう感
That's
じは
pretty
どう
cool.
ですかみたいな結構相談は多いです。
What do you think about something like this?
そうですね、本当に密にやらせていただいてまして、
Okay.
他のFF の監修チーム
Makes sense. You gotta pay respect to the other teams that made those games.
ご意見とか
So that seems to be like the gist of the interview. They do talk a little bit further about Opera Omnia, which I played a decent chunk of. Opera Omnia, I think, was one of the longer lasting Square mobile games. I know it's become a joke these days of like, oh, Square Enix announced a mobile game. It'll reach end of service in a year, 2 years. Opera Omnia was pretty fun. A lot of people really liked that game. And when it got shut down, a lot of people, I think, were very upset. But a lot of games have been shuttered over the years. I don't know if Brave Exvius is still a thing. There was another one I'm forgetting the name of. There's quite a few Square mobile games. But when it comes to this one, again, I'm not like enthused. I'm just whelmed. I'll check it out. And I hope it does well. I know there's a lot of people that are upset it's not what they want it to be. I get it. I would have loved a new Dissidia Arena Fighter. But this is something different. They're taking a chance on something new. They're allowing their developers to experiment. Again, it's not going to be for everybody. Not all of it's going to work, but I'm not going to sit here and be like, this sucks. You know, I'm not going to hope that it fails. I hope it does well. I hope it's good. You know, I want these younger developers to be able to try these ideas and have some stuff work. Maybe some stuff gets ironed out later on, but I want the games to be good. You know, I want people to be able to play these games and have fun. A lot of the things that kind of make that experience up and down is like the gacha aspect, if they incorporate that, of like unlocking stuff, which is a really big headache in something like Ever Crisis, although I don't really focus on it. When I play Ever Crisis, all I'm worried about is just leveling up my characters. That's all I focus on. All the other stuff, weapons, armor, materia, outfits, just kind of happens. So if you're trying to go for that stuff, it's a grind. But for the most part, for me, it just happens. But obviously, you know, time will tell how well the game does. Again, I think it'll do well in Japan. Maybe not so much here in America, but they're trying something new. I'm not going to sit here and be like, this sucks. It's not what I wanted. I hope it fails. You're not into something, you do the common sense thing, you move on. That's how it was for me growing up, at least. If me and my friends were like, yeah, we're not into this thing, we didn't play it. We just moved on. We didn't devote our time to hating it, which is something that really confuses me about, you know, gaming culture these days. It's not even gaming culture, it's internet culture. There's a lot of people that make it their personality to hate something and want it to fail. You see it all the time with Final Fantasy games, specifically the 7 Remake trilogy, where they're like, this sucks, they ruined it, they butchered it. And I'm like, you're allowed to feel that way. I've said this thousands of times in my videos. I can understand why people wouldn't like the Remake trilogy. I really love it. But I don't understand the people who are like, this sucks, and then they don't move on. They just continue to find new stuff about 7 Remake and Rebirth videos too, where they can go and just crap on it. It's like, dude, just move on. Like, it's a waste of time and energy to keep focusing on something you claim to not like anymore. And that's not a good way to live your life. Soapbox over there. So with that being said, that's the video. Again, I'll check this out when it happens. I can't promise I'll play it forever, but you know, it is what it is. Well, time will tell if we'll get a different Dissidia in the future. But I'm curious, Corduroy. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys thought of this reaction, this video with the developers of the Final Fantasy series, from Kitase to Yoshi P to now even some of the newer generation. It's interesting. A lot of younger people now moving into Square Enix, getting their hands on a lot of these games and working with Nomura, Kitase, Hamaguchi. It's pretty interesting. I'm curious to see where Square Enix heads in the future. I'll see you guys in the next video. Please remember to always be excellent to one another.